The morning light embraced the horizon, spilling golden hues across the quiet forest clearing. Birds sang softly in harmony. I sat upon a moss-covered stone, my thoughts tangled in the web of life's ceaseless demands. Shadows stretched long. My past feels unbearable. The Buddha remained silent, his calm presence encouraging Rahula to continue unburdening his soul. Rahula spoke further, detailing acts of deceit, greed, and harm that haunted his memories. I strive for enlightenment, Rahula said, his voice trembling. But shame binds me. How can I stand before you, Master? The Buddha looked at Rahula with profound compassion, his eyes conveying understanding without judgment. Rahula, the Buddha said softly, have you seen the rain transform a barren field into fertile ground? Rahula paused, recalling the vibrant green growth following the monsoon rains. Yes, Master, I have witnessed such transformation, he replied. The Buddha's voice was steady and kind as he continued speaking to the gathered disciples. The rain does not reject the barren field, nor does the earth refuse the clouds that once obscured the sun. Rahula listened intently, his shame momentarily giving way to curiosity as the Buddha's words resonated deeply within him. He smiled faintly, his expression neither stern nor indulgent, but one of understanding that transcended the burden of words. The first lesson. Observe, he began, gesturing toward a nearby tree whose roots clung fiercely to the earth below. This tree, like you, clings to what supports it, yet its leaves fall in time to nourish its roots. I nodded, absorbing the metaphor, though the turmoil within me remained as restless as the wind among the leaves. Rahula looked at the Buddha, seeing not condemnation but an invitation to growth. Master, Rahula asked, his voice hesitant yet hopeful, how do we move beyond the storms of our past mistakes? The Buddha gestured toward the Bodhi tree under which he often sat, its leaves shimmering in the morning light. This tree, the Buddha began, stands tall because it has faced storms, drawing strength from the rain. Rahula gazed at the Bodhi tree, understanding its resilience as a metaphor for human transformation and spiritual growth. How do I let go, then, of what weighs my heart? I asked, fear and doubt echoing in my words. You must learn to see the burden not as an anchor but as a seed for growth, he replied. I remained quiet, his words evoking images of dormant seeds lying deep beneath layers of frozen soil. My breath slowed. Anger is like a wildfire, the Buddha said. It may destroy, but it also clears the way for new growth. The disciple nodded, his own burden easing as he began to see the value in facing his past mistakes. Mistakes, the Buddha continued, are opportunities for growth, if we have the courage to confront them and learn from their teachings. Rahula listened closely, inspired by the Buddha's words and the shared struggles of his fellow disciples. I pondered, no, the sky accepts its nature, I murmured, understanding dawning faintly upon my weary mind. My gaze returned to him. Acceptance is not passive surrender. It is the wisdom to see change as the essence of all existence, he said. Acceptance, the Buddha said, is the first step toward transformation, allowing us to face ourselves with honesty and courage. Rahula and the other disciples reflected deeply, their hearts turning toward renewal and growth. The storms of your past, the Buddha concluded, have brought you here, seeking clarity and wisdom. Embrace this moment fully. Rahula bowed his head, his tears now a symbol of gratitude rather than despair, as he absorbed the Buddha's teachings. The Bodhi tree's leaves rustled gently, as if echoing the transformative wisdom shared beneath its canopy. Which among them binds you the tightest? I closed my eyes, sifting through memories like leaves in a storm, and felt the sharp sting of regret resurface. The burden of what could have been, I finally admitted, my voice heavy with emotion. The Buddha sat silently, his presence serving as a beacon of peace and guidance for those who sought his wisdom. Through reflection and meditation, Rahula began to understand that shame, though painful, held the power to awaken his inner strength. I will not reject my past, Rahula resolved, but use it as a foundation upon which to build compassion and understanding. The Buddha's teachings lingered in Rahula's heart, planting the seeds of transformation within his soul. Rahula approached the Buddha later that day, his demeanor less burdened, his eyes holding a newfound spark of clarity. Master, Rahula said, his voice steady, I see now that my past has brought me to this path of growth. The Buddha looked at Rahula, his serene smile conveying quiet affirmation and encouragement. The journey, the Buddha said, is not about perfection but about progress, about awakening to the truth within each moment, awareness for truth as it is, and compassion for the heart that suffers. I nodded, though uncertainty still swirled within me. Rahula joined the other disciples for evening meditation, his heart more open and his mind more focused than ever before. The past, Rahula thought, is not an enemy but a teacher guiding me toward greater wisdom and compassion. The Bodhi tree stood tall and resilient, its roots firmly grounded in the soil of transformation. Another day dawned, the air carrying the soft fragrance of blooming lotus flowers as the disciples gathered for teachings. Ananda approached the Buddha, his steps hesitant, his face marked with the weight of unspoken regrets. Master, Ananda began, his voice trembling, I have wronged others through selfishness and deceit in my younger years. The Buddha regarded Ananda with gentle compassion, his gaze steady and inviting openness without fear of judgment. Tell me, Ananda, the Buddha said, have you seen a tree that bears no fruit after a season of drought? Ananda nodded, recalling the barren trees that had once stood lifeless in a dry and parched field. Does the tree remain barren forever? Or does it sprout again when the rains return? The Buddha asked softly. It bears fruit again when nurtured, Ananda replied, his tone carrying a glimmer of understanding but still heavy with doubt. The Buddha continued, his voice calm yet profound. Your past actions are like the drought, but your present choices are the rain. Ananda felt his heart stir, a faint shift in the overwhelming heaviness that had shadowed his spirit for years. Master, Ananda asked, how do I ensure that my present choices can atone for the harm I have caused? The Buddha gestured to a nearby bowl of rice grains, each tiny grain gleaming in the sunlight. Ananda, the Buddha said, if one spills a handful of rice, is it possible to gather each grain back into the bowl? Ananda looked at the bowl, his expression contemplative as he pondered the Buddha's question and its deeper meaning. My heart felt lighter somehow. The forest seemed alive with whispers of his wisdom, as though the trees and stones themselves knew the truths he shared. Regret, the Buddha said, is not about retrieving the past, but about planting seeds of kindness for the future. Ananda listened intently, his burdened heart beginning to absorb the transformative wisdom of his master's teaching. The other disciples watched in attentive silence, each reflecting on the mistakes and regrets they carried within themselves. When you dwell on past actions without purpose, you hold yourself captive to the shadows of a life already lived, the Buddha continued. Freedom comes not from erasing the past but from learning its lessons and choosing differently. Now, a disciple named Khema spoke up, her voice steady yet somber. Master, I have often acted impulsively, harming others through careless words. The Buddha turned to Khema, addressing her with the same patience and empathy as he had shown Ananda. Khema, the Buddha said, if a pot of water is spilled, does the ground refuse to absorb it? Master, Khema replied, her mind beginning to sense the metaphor embedded in the Buddha's question. The ground absorbs it, and life springs forth again, she added. her voice carrying a note of hope amidst her lingering regret. The Buddha nodded, his wisdom weaving a tapestry of compassion and transformation before his gathered disciples. In the same way, the earth of this present moment absorbs the water of past actions and gives rise to renewal, the Buddha explained. Ananda and Khema exchanged glances, their shared understanding growing as the Buddha's words took root in their hearts. Regret is like a stream, the Buddha continued. It flows away, but it also nourishes the soil it touches. The sun climbed higher, casting warm light over the monastery grounds. As the disciples sat in rapt attention, absorbing the Buddha's teachings, his gaze softened. Shadows persist not to haunt but to guide us toward understanding, he said, his voice carrying the depth of rivers. Rahula, still reflecting deeply on his own journey of transformation, spoke next. Master, how do we find peace amid the guilt of our actions? The Buddha gestured toward the flowing stream nearby, its waters glistening as they meandered gently toward the horizon. Rahula, the Buddha said, look at this stream. The tiger does not flee its reflection in the water. It drinks deeply. Seeing its true form, he explained calmly. I pondered his words, imagining the tiger's fierce, unyielding stance as it confronted the reflection rippling before it. The disciples listened with reverence, the metaphor of the stream resonating deeply within their hearts. The stream does not resist the rocks, the Buddha continued. It embraces them and flows around them, finding new pathways. Light flickered. What if the fear consumes me? I asked, feeling the vulnerability echo through my voice like a distant cry for help. You are not the fear, nor its captive, he replied. You are the witness to its rise and fall. Your past, the Buddha said, is the soil in which the seeds of your future are sown. Ananda reflected on the metaphor, his mind drawn to the idea that his regret could become the foundation of renewal. Master, Ananda said, I see now that my regret need not imprison me, but can instead inspire compassion in my actions. The Buddha nodded, his serene smile affirming Ananda's growing understanding and his commitment to the path. Feel the breath as it enters and as it leaves. Nothing more. Ananda lingered for a moment longer, his heart filled with gratitude for the guidance of his master. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over the horizon, the disciples gathered once more to share their reflections. Calm unfolded. The breath is the bridge between fear and presence, he explained. It grounds you while allowing fear to pass ungrasped. I felt the edges of my fear, no longer sharp but softened by the steady cadence of my breath. The Buddha sat in meditation beneath the Bodhi tree, his serene countenance a beacon of light for all who sought the truth. Another day arrived, the morning light softly illuminating the monastery, where the disciples gathered for the Buddha's teachings once more. Among them, Rahula and Ananda sat quietly, their hearts still reflecting on the wisdom shared during past lessons. The Buddha's serene presence inspired a sense of calm, yet the atmosphere carried an undertone of anticipation. Rahula, emboldened by his growth, spoke to the Buddha, Master, how do we truly confront the lingering shadows of our past? The Buddha listened intently, his expression calm, as if reflecting on the depth of Rahula's question and its universal significance. Rahula, the Buddha began gently. Have you seen the reflections in a still pond disturbed when a stone is cast into it? Rahula nodded, recalling the ripples spreading outward, disrupting the mirror-like surface of the water, momentarily altering its clarity. The Buddha gestured toward the monastery's nearby pond, its surface shimmering peacefully in the morning light. The stone, the Buddha continued, represents our actions. The ripples are their echoes, touching lives and circumstances beyond their original intent. Ananda interjected, his voice steady. Master, can the pond ever return to its undisturbed state, untouched by the ripples of past actions? The Buddha's voice was calm and wise as he replied. The pond returns to stillness, but the stone remains beneath, becoming part of its deeper essence and story. Rahula felt his heart resonate with the Buddha's metaphor, understanding that his past was now an inseparable part of himself. Master, Rahula asked, how do we accept the stone's presence without letting its weight drown us in regret and guilt? The Buddha lifted a small jug of water nearby, pouring it steadily into the pond before the gathered disciples. This water, the Buddha explained, represents your present actions, nurturing clarity and balance despite the stone's enduring presence beneath the surface. The disciples watched intently, each feeling their hearts awaken further to the profound wisdom woven into the Buddha's teachings. Accepting the past, the Buddha said, is not to ignore the stone but to nourish the pond around it. Khema, inspired by the teachings, spoke up, Master, what if the stone's ripples caused harm beyond our ability to mend? The Buddha turned his gaze to Khema, his expression filled with compassion and understanding, yet firm in its wisdom. Khema, the Buddha began, have you seen a tree shed its leaves and grow anew in the coming spring? Khema nodded, recalling the resilience and renewal seen in nature's seasons, a testament to life's enduring cycles. The Buddha gestured toward the Bodhi tree, its leaves whispering gently in the breeze, as though echoing his words. The tree does not reclaim its fallen leaves, the Buddha said, but uses its roots to draw strength for future growth. Ananda listened, deeply moved, realizing that harm done could inspire him to live with greater mindfulness and compassion in the future. Master, Ananda asked, how do we transform the weight of regret into a force that empowers us to grow? The Buddha picked up a grain of rice from a nearby bowl, holding it delicately between his fingers. This grain, the Buddha began, is both small and significant, capable of nurturing life when planted with care and intention for its growth. Ananda's heart stirred as he realized his smallest choices could contribute to healing and renewal over time. Despite past mistakes, growth, the Buddha said, is not about erasing harm but planting seeds that inspire compassion and positive change. The disciples felt their spirits lift, realizing the power within their present actions to shape the course of their lives moving forward. Your past may cast shadows, the Buddha said, but your present and future can illuminate the path through the darkness they leave behind. Rahula, Khema, and Ananda exchanged thoughtful glances, their minds opening further to the Buddha's wisdom. The monastery seemed to breathe with life, the teachings radiating from the Buddha like sunlight breaking through the clouds after a storm. The disciples gathered closer, sensing that their master's words held profound importance for their spiritual journeys ahead. Facing your past, the Buddha said, is to confront the stone without fear and to embrace the ripples as lessons. Ananda bowed his head, tears forming in his eyes as he felt the weight of his regrets soften into the seeds of transformation. Master, Ananda said, his voice steady yet full of emotion, I see now that my past has brought me wisdom. Rahula gazed at Ananda, inspired by his courage and the strength born from confronting his mistakes with honesty. Khema spoke again, her voice carrying the resolute tone of someone embracing newfound clarity and purpose in their spiritual journey. Master, Khema asked, can we ever truly release the weight of our regrets? Or do they remain as eternal reminders? The Buddha's serene expression held a hint of a smile, his presence offering comfort and certainty to his disciples. Regrets, the Buddha said, are neither chains nor punishments but guides, pointing us toward the wisdom and growth we seek within ourselves. The disciples felt their spirits resonate with these words, understanding that their past mistakes could lead them to greater self-awareness and compassion. Release, the Buddha said, is not about forgetting but about living with intention and transformation. The day turned to Evening. The monastery bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun. As the disciples reflected on the teachings, Rahula gazed at the pond, its surface now still and serene. Mirroring the inner peace he began to feel within himself. Master, Rahula said, I will honor my past as a teacher, not as an enemy to be feared. The Buddha nodded, pleased with Rahula's resolve and the disciples' growing embrace of the wisdom shared under the Bodhi tree. Your journey, the Buddha said, is not defined by the stones you carry, but by how you choose to move forward. The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts filled with gratitude for their master's profound teachings and presence. The monastery grew quiet as night fell, the stars illuminating the sky and mirroring the light of understanding within the disciples' souls. The Buddha sat silently beneath the Bodhi tree, his serene countenance offering steadfast guidance to those seeking truth and transformation. The disciples rested, their minds free from torment, ready to face their paths with courage and wisdom. The forest seemed alive with the echoes of his wisdom, the stream's song a reminder of his teachings on presence and flow. I sat by the stream for what felt like hours, my heart unburdening itself through stillness and reflection. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.